He knows what it's like to walk around in your skin. He knows what it's like to suffer in a world that is wrought with sin and the consequences of sin. And Jesus, as we're going to find out, himself was not a sinner, but he had to deal with the effects of sin as well. And being 100% human enabled him also to represent us. We'll get to this in just a few moments, but because we are sinful people, we deserve to die. Jesus could therefore be our representative to die in our place because he was 100% human. We'll talk about why and how he was able to die for us in a few moments, but 100% human, here's another thing that we learn from this passage, is that though he was 100% human, at the same time, he was 100% God. Just because he was born to a woman like you and I, there was something different about him. Yes, human being, yes, like us, yes, but in different ways, he was conceived. You see, we trace our existence back to our conception and ultimately our birth, but Jesus existed before his conception. You see, we're going to learn here that Jesus has always existed. He is God, and he has always been God, and being God, he is eternal. And so his birth was not his beginning. His conception was not his beginning. He already existed. Colossians chapter 1, verses 15 and 16, Paul describes it like this, talking about Jesus, saying that he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. Well, the word firstborn does not necessarily mean that he was first to be born. It means that all that has come into existence found its birth in him. So he's creator. In fact, to clarify, verse 16 of Colossians 1 says that for by him, by Jesus, all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things were created through him and for him. Why? Because he's 100% God. The gospel writer, John, tells us as much in John chapter 1. Look at there in verses 1, 2, and 3. He says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him, not anything made that was made. Of course, we know that the Word that John is speaking of is Jesus. In fact, if you'll take the Word out and place Jesus' name there, you'll see it even more clearly that in the beginning was Jesus. And that Jesus was with God because Jesus was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him, not anything that was made through Jesus. So later, further down in verse 14 of John chapter 1, that John mentions Jesus' human birth, where he says, and the Word, Jesus, became flesh and dwelt among us.